So I like challenging the status quo, and I like challenging some of the norms out there, because the norms, like it's like writing a book, for example. There are people, and I've given you a structure in here of how I think you should write a book. Just start with the think, feel, do, break it down, put the stories in there, etc. That's if that's what you need. If you don't want to do it that way, guess what? There actually are no rules when it comes to book writing, right? Every publisher will tell you must do it this way. You must have a clear narrative thread through. Rubbish. I've read books that break every single rule, and they are brilliant books. So that's why I realized very early in my career that most of the rules that are out there are rules that are put in place by someone that found that thing worked for them. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a better way of doing it.
Right.
So my reason for rule breaking is there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way to make things more accessible for entrepreneurs, make them easier for people to grow, all of those kind of things as well. So.
And
I'll tell you what, though, having that framework helps with another thing as well, because there are many mental challenges you're going to face writing a book. And I want to be really upfront with people about this, right? It isn't that, it's a lot easier than you think to write a book, but there are some challenges that will come up. One of those is imposter syndrome. That's just every author. I don't care how experienced you are. Even James Patterson, who's the most sold male author on the planet, has talked about feeling imposter syndrome every time he puts a book out there, So you're going to face that. You're going to face self-doubt. But the other thing you're going to face is creative block, or what we call author's bloat. And this is where you, like, for example, if I'm writing that book about writing a book, at some point in that book, I'll say, right, pick up your pen and grab a bit of paper and start writing. And they'll go, oh, wait, what if they don't know what a pen is? Oh, hang on, I'll explain what a pen is. And they go, wait, what is the history of a pen? Where did pen go? Next thing you know, you're writing in your book about cave drawings and, all these kind of things, and the history of the quill and all this. None of that is actually relevant to what you're writing about. But you go down this rabbit hole of thinking you need to include it to add credibility to it. However, if you've got this framework where you see think, feel, do, when you measure that up against that, you're like, well, actually, that's not really going to help them to think this, to feel this, or to do this. So I'm taking that out. That'll become your second book. You write a book about pens or something like that. So very, very interesting topic, of course. So that will help you to get rid of that author's bloat.
Your framework, it almost gets rid of what I call analysis paralysis, going down that rabbit hole of, should I explain it more, or will they understand it or not?
Yeah. And the beauty of that is that all just comes from my own experiences, Kathy, because honestly, my first book took me 2.5 years to write. Okay. I wrote a book recently in a weekend, so it's a very different ordeal. Now, to be fair, that first book also came with some other external challenges. So I have this weird genetic disorder. Well, it's not even a disorder, it's a mutation. So it's my ADRB1 gene, which means that I don't sleep much. I only sleep 4 hours a night, which is super handy when you want to get stuff done. But it means I get up every morning around 2:00. So 3:00 every morning was my writing time. And that was when I would sit down and write this book. The challenge I had was I come from a big family, all broken family, and one of my sisters, who my only natural sister, my older sister, we discovered had cancer and struggled, in fact, battled cancer for a year before, unfortunately, losing that battle. But while she was battling cancer, she was based in Australia, so 2-hour time difference from here in New Zealand. So 1:00 in the morning was when all of her family were finally asleep, and she'd spent the whole day telling them, I'm not in pain at all. I'm not afraid at all. We're going to get through this. It's going to be great, which was her putting on the staunch, brave face that she'd always done. She's an incredible woman. So 1:00 in the mornings when everyone's asleep, and then she suddenly faced reality and goes, oh my goodness, and would ring her brother. So she'd ring me, and my writing time was then sacrificed for talking with her and encouraging her to actually be open and honest with her husband and her 2 teenage boys, for starters. But it was also her chance to just be broken and just say, I'm really scared. I'm in a lot of pain and I don't know what to do. So that took a year out of the writing, but that's still 1.5 years to write a book. It was, I won't say funny because it sounds terrible saying it was funny when she died, but when we got the news that she only had a few days left, her and I had a big long phone call, and she kind of said to me, look, are you going to come over? And I said, no. I said, because they'd carved out half of her face at the time. It was all melanoma. And I said, I don't want to remember you like this. I want to remember you as the sister who's always been there for me and always been my rock. And I said, and you don't owe me going over to see you. You don't owe anyone anything. You just spend time with your husband and your kids. That's where your priority is. Like, forget about the rest of us. And she goes, oh man. So I got to say goodbye to her and it was really beautiful. But at the end, she goes, oh, by the way. And I said, what? She goes, that book you're writing. I said, yeah. She goes, if you don't finish that effing book, I'm going to come back and haunt you. I'm like, oh. So it was a great inspiration for that as well.
But maybe she led you to be a publisher as well. I mean, it's.
Yeah. Well, actually that book was the journey for that, because it was the Adobe Award that you were talking about at the beginning in the intro. I was chief marketing officer at Cigna Insurance at the time. So, chief marketing officer at a Fortune 100 company, that comes with, some credibility. I'm standing on stage in San Francisco in front of about 10,000 people there. And I just received this recognition of being in the Fearless 50. And I made mention on stage that I'm writing a book. And I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I was writing a book. I didn't understand anything about the publishing industry at all. I just knew I'm writing a book. I'll figure it out as I go along. Well, it turns out, and there's 10,000 people, were about 7 different publishers. So they all hounded me afterwards. And I sat down with a couple of the bigger ones, traditional publishers, and they were ones where I knew authors that they had published before that I really liked. So I said, right. And I sat down with one of them, and they were very open and honest with me. And they said, look, there's a few things you need to understand about traditional publishing. I said, sure. They said, first of all, we don't do any marketing. And I went, well, that sucks. And they said, well, they will defer to you for the marketing bit. So I said, look, I may be a marketer, I may be known for that, but I don't want to market myself. I suck at that. I'm good at marketing other people. But that's why it's really hard to get booked with a traditional publisher, because they see this as, they're not going to do any of the marketing. So they will look at you and go, is this a person that has a significant following? Is this someone that when they put a book out, it's going to sell?
Yes.
Exactly. So that was one of them. The second one was around the narrative style and the limitations they have around that, which was a big problem for me. But the third one they said to me is, you don't own your own IP. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand about traditional publishing. When you publish your book through them, they own that book, which means you can't give it away. Like if you go, I'm going to give away,
control.
I'm going to give away 2,500 copies of my book because, that's going to give me a huge amount of leads. They go, wait, for free? I don't think so, because they have a vested interest in the book. So what they say to you is like, one of my clients was with a traditional publisher. They were going to a conference and they said, look, I want 200 copies to give away. And they went, no, you can buy them though. And don't forget, you get 10% commission. And she was like, wait, no, that's just a 10% discount on my books. Forget it. So when they told me that, I just thought, I can't do that. I don't want to go down that route. That doesn't suit me at all. I'm going to self-publish. But what I also knew is I know nothing about this. So I put myself in a hole for about 6 months of just studying everything I could about publishing. I interviewed, Kathy, every single person that even mentioned book at some point in their conversation. I would pick their brains. I talked to authors, publishers, designers, copywriters, proofreaders, developmental editors. I talked to every single person I could to find out every bit of information I could. And then I realized, oh, wow, turns out I can't do it alone. I need a proofreader. I need a developmental editor. I need a designer. I need all of these things. So gathered my team and found some really talented people. It was a hard find to get the right people, but found some talented people and said, right, we're going to do this. We're going to publish my book. We did it. It was a bestseller straight away. I was very happy with that. And then I turned around to them and said, oh, by the way, I'm going to work on my next book now. I'd love you guys to be part of that. And they went, yeah, sure, if we can find the time. And I went, whoa, hang on. I'm a little selfish here. How about I hire you guys? You all come work for me full time. And that way you're available when I need to publish it. And when I need to do my next book. They said, well, what do we do? I said, I don't know. We'll make it up as we go along. I thought they'd become like, copywriters for me and we'll do content and that. But it turns out I had all these clients that really wanted to be authors as well, that understood the value of that. So that was the start of it. And then we ended up going down a path and working with most of the major traditional publishers, doing ghost publishing for them. And it's been a crazy journey since then.
That is, it's when you think of how it all started, I mean, that is pretty crazy. So do you think like traditional publishers, they're always going to be around, but are the number of books that are being published right now, is it more by what I would call, and I probably don't have the right term, but like independent publishers?
Yeah, we call them, they have many names, independent publishers, hybrid publishers. Usually they're called hybrid. or whatever it is, indie, boutique, shell. There's lots of names for them. I think it depends on your needs. It really does. Like for someone like Michelle Obama, for example, when she put her book out there, her going through a hybrid publisher would be absolutely pointless.
Right.
She wants to go through a publisher who's large enough that they can wine and dine the New York Times to say, hey, by the way, check out that book. Do you think that should be a bestseller? Yeah, okay, put it on your list. So they'll be doing the hard yards in there. And by the way, New York Times bestseller list, just calling this out right now, if you haven't already heard, but it is not a bestseller list. They need to change the name of that.
So
James Patterson. Well, James Patterson proved that, because their whole thing is it's based roughly on book sales, but it's more on quality, which is their catch-all to say, if we're in relationship with the author, then we will put them on the list. And great example is James Patterson, who parted ways with his publisher and now self-publishes. He actually does all of his books self-published. He's one of the most prolific authors in the world. He sold more books than Stephen King has. Wow. And every time he puts a book out there, he'll sell 1 million copies of that book. He was not even ranked when he put his new book out. He didn't even get a ranking on the New York Times bestseller list, despite the fact that he was at least 5 times more sales than the #1 spot.
Wow.
So it really is all about who you know. So that's why I say, traditional publishers always have their place for people that's important. But for those that are entrepreneurs, they actually want to use their book and want to make money off it and just impact people and help others. I think you're going to see more and more people go to hybrid. They could do it alone as well, but there's so many mistakes you can make doing it alone. I do encourage people to at least try that at once, but then work with somebody who's a specialist in this area and get them to help you to write the book, publish the book, and market the book as well, which is a key thing. So I think there's going to be a shift in dynamics there.
So you had mentioned marketing. So how do you get a book to become successful or a bestseller in a category, let's say?
Yeah, well, there's a few things to note there. We do a lot of work around the launch itself, and there's a very big specific reason for that. We want to create as much momentum in a short amount of time as possible, because if you look at someone like Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Ingram Network, basically each of these distribution networks, they are looking at all the books on their platform and going, which of these are basically making a big bang? Which of these are the ones that we should recommend to other people? And if you're creating a huge amount of momentum in a short amount of time, then all of a sudden they go, oh, wait, Kathy's new book. Everyone's talking about that. Everyone's reviewing it. Everyone's buying it. Everyone's sharing it on social. Okay, we'll put it on the recommendation engines. And all of a sudden you get so much more exposure than someone that's just soft launched and put it on Amazon and kind of wishful thinking. Right. So we do a lot of work around that. Yeah. But we do that by going, okay, what is the audience that you have now, right? And for most of you as entrepreneurs, you'll have an audience, but also how do we utilize their networks as well? How do we expand beyond so that you're not just selling a book? I'm not just selling a book to Kathy here. I'm selling a book to Kathy and Kathy's 4 friends. So instead of 1 copy of a book, I'm selling 5 copies of the book. So we do a lot of work around friend get friend campaigns and about trying to maximize that. PR is another way that we highly recommend. We don't do the PR for you, but we have a lot of PR companies that we work very, very closely with that we trust, that really understand books. Getting you on TV, getting you on radio, getting you on podcasts, those kind of things can really help with the book sales. But the other thing is, and this is a technical thing, understanding where to put your book. That is one of the biggest things, because most people don't know this. When they put a book, if they self-publish, they'll put a book on Amazon and they'll go up on what we call KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing, and they'll self-publish their book there. When you do that, you're allowed to put your book in 2 categories. These categories are what's known as BizAc categories, which are basically like an industry standard. So there's about 100, I can't remember how many it is, about 180 maybe different categories you can put your book in. So you put in those 2 categories and then, wishful think, hopefully you sell enough copies that you're a bestseller. Right.
Yeah.
But the reality is on Amazon, on Amazon, for example, you're actually allowed in 10 categories. And there aren't 180 odd. There's about 500, 600, 800, depending on which section there. There's all these different categories you weren't even aware of. But if you know those categories, and you know the categories that don't have much competition, and it suits your book, you have a much higher chance of becoming a best-selling author. In fact, we had the Holy Grail, Kathy, one of my clients launched. I have a piece of software that I will neither confirm nor deny scrapes Amazon every 2 hours. But we take all this info. We may or may not take this information and throw it into predictive AI.
Yeah, you may or may not have heard that. Yeah,
exactly. So we throw that into a predictive AI solution, which then looks at all the movements in these categories, like looks at what new categories are out, what ones are now deprecated, that kind of thing. And then it looks at what the movements are in there and how many new books and what the competition is, and gives you a predictive analysis on what categories you should be in. We did this with one of my clients, and we always run the report early and then we rerun it just before we're about to publish. And we reran it before we were published, and we noticed 2 brand new categories that just so happened to suit her book very strongly. In fact, it was the main subject of her book. And we were like, oh my goodness, this is unbelievable. We put her book out there. She sold 20 copies and was listed as a bestseller. Now, that very rarely happens, everybody, but it was amazing. It was like the holy grail. Now, to be clear, she sold like 5,000 copies of her book anyway. She did very, very well from that. But we just thought that was hilarious.
Wow. Is there a pricing strategy at all when it comes to pricing your book?
Not so much a strategy as more of a thought process, I guess. The way we kind of work is we give you what the industry standards are and let you know, like, soft cover might be $19.95,
right?
And use standard pricing models there as well. Don't go $20, $10. Put it as a $19.95 because there is some psychology behind that. Ebooks can be like $6.95, $7.95, $9.95. But the thing is, what we do is we say, what is the purpose of your book? In other words, what are you hoping to achieve from it? If what you're hoping to achieve is that bestseller status, it's the bit of the positioning you as a thought leader, then I would go for the lower price, but not too low that it actually undermines your authority.
Okay.
So rather than go out there and go, I'm doing a 99-cent ebook, which you can do, but 99-cent ebook devalues what you're actually putting.
People are going to think there's not any, even if it's an amazing ebook, people are going to think, what can I get for 99 cents?
Exactly. So what we do is we put it out there for the first 2 weeks, at least, that you've launched. We put it out there for like $6.99 for an ebook, and we'll put it out for either $15.95 or $19.95 for a soft cover. And then after that 2 weeks, you put the price up. And that way your price is a respectable price, which, and shows the credibility of your book, but you've achieved the goal of getting that book to that bestseller status. Now, if your goal is to get booked on TV and things like that, I wouldn't put your price too low at all. I put it quite high because that shows prestige, things like that. Or if your goal is simply to get the book in the hands of as many people as possible, start thinking about giving it away for free. Just actually putting it on your website and saying, hey, look, sign up with me and I'll give you give me your contact details and I'll give you a free ebook copy of this. Or like we said before, with the physical book copies as well, we can make a little bit of money off that as well.
Right. And have them pay for shipping.
Exactly.
And it's interesting because I've seen, thinking back, a bunch of landing pages that has that from a lot of the gurus out there, hey, I'm going to send you a free book. You just have to pay for the shipping.
Yep. Oh, Russell Brunson makes a ton of money off
Russell Brunson is huge into that. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yes, some people regret telling him that. Let's put it that way, because he does very well from it. Now, look, and this way, and like he sends me a copy of his books anyway, so I shouldn't need to. But if I see the free book funnel on there, I end up buying it. Like, as in, I end up signing up for the free copy and paying the $10 shipping. Then I'm like, what did I just do? Like, literally, I know it's in the mail now anyway, but I just want to make sure I'm getting my hands on a copy.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can also see what the funnel's like too.
Yeah.
Or you may already know what the funnel is like. Maybe we should talk about that. But
No, we do not. Russell's obviously the owner of ClickFunnels. I'm not a huge fan, and I'll tell Russell this. I do tell Russell this to his face, but I'm not a huge fan of ClickFunnels as a platform. If it suits you, that's absolutely fine. I'm not saying anything derogatory about it here, but from a landing page perspective, I cannot stand personally those landing pages where you've got to scroll for hours and hours through all this content just to get to the damn buy button. Yeah.
Yes.
I like to keep it clean, simple, to the point, address the challenge that the person has, show them the solution and get them to convert.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like, just even with that statement alone, it sounds like you're a bit of a rule breaker. So tell me, what makes you a rule breaker?
Man. Okay, first of all, I don't like being told I can't do something. And I'll give you the other example around my first book was I used to work with what I call a very angry Canadian woman. And she's actually really lovely, but she had some issues. She had written a couple of books And I'm standing there. We're at this organization. I was working in international education at the time. And we would get, universities from around the world go, hey, we want Vince to come and teach us how to do marketing. And so we constantly, when we had a leaders meeting there, they'd be like, oh, Vince, we need to get you off on another trip. We need to get you, doing a road show around New Zealand, Australia, or whatever else, blah, blah, blah. And she just lost it one day. And she goes, I'm sick of hearing Vince. She goes, he's not an author. He wouldn't make an author's a-hole. Oh. And I went, hey, I'm standing right next to you. And she goes, exactly. And I went, okay. So at that point, the moment I heard that and I heard you wouldn't make an author's a-hole, I'm like, okay, that's it. Challenge accepted. And I will neither confirm nor deny that a copy of each of my books may or may not go to a certain individual signed from the author's a-hole. I can be quite childish. But look, I like challenging the status quo, and I like challenging some of the norms out there, because the norms, like it's like writing a book, for example. There are people, and I've given you a structure in here of how I think you should write a book. Just start with the think, feel, do, break it down, put the stories in there, etc. That's if that's what you need. If you don't want to do it that way, guess what? There actually are no rules when it comes to book writing, right? Every publisher will tell you, you must do it this way. You must have a clear narrative thread through. Rubbish. I've read books that break every single rule, and they are brilliant books. So that's why I realized very early in my career that most of the rules that are out there are rules that are put in place by someone that found that that thing worked for them. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a better way of doing it. Right. So my reason for rule breaking is there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way to make things more accessible for entrepreneurs, make them easier for people to grow, all of those kind of things as well. So I love breaking rules. And obviously keeping it legal, of course. But yes, of course, always above the law. Of course, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think really, the whole thing about being a rule breaker is always thinking, no matter how successful you are, maybe it's just like we always want to move to like that next level or something like that. But what can I do different, better? Because you'll want just to move the needle a little bit and maybe stand out a little bit more. I think.
Yeah. Or affect some change. I mean, that's a big driver for me.
Make a difference in the world. Yeah.
Well, I look at it. I was chief marketing officer at Cigna Insurance. I'd just come off the back of selling my largest startup. So we had a multi-8-figure exit after 3.5 years of a lot of stress and anxiety, by the way. But I'm suddenly chief marketing officer at Cigna. On paper, that is a dream job, right? On paper, the pay was like ludicrous. The bonuses were embarrassingly large. I got to work on some amazing stuff. I got the results as well. I doubled the revenue of that company in 5 years. But at the same time, and I got the recognition, obviously I published my first book while I was there. I got that recognition from Adobe, plus a slew of other awards. Right. Got to travel the world speaking on stages. That part I did miss, I must say. But all of that on paper was amazing. And I was miserable. And I remember sitting there, I literally was in my office. I had the biggest office in our building. And I had the harbor views, and we were watching the cruise ships come in. And I'm like, this should be amazing. I had my Mad Men style whiskey cabinet in the corner, which I was quite proud of, to be fair. But I was sitting there writing a list of why I should love my job, because I felt so guilty about the fact that most marketers would kill for that opportunity. And I had the opportunity, and I didn't want it. So I realized that that I had to understand why that was, and it was because I wasn't being true to myself. I wasn't feeling fulfilled, because I want to impact people. I want to be at the forefront of where I'm helping people and helping people to grow. And when you're a chief marketing officer at a Fortune 100, that is definitely not what you're doing. Everyone to you is a dollar sign or a data point. So I'm like, well, that's not aligned with me. So I made that hard decision. Hard, yes. Easily made the hard decision. Yeah, I came home one day and my wife just looked at me, Leanne she looked at me and said, "You're not happy, are you?" I went, "No." And she goes, "Do we need to make a change?" I went, "Yeah." And so we went back and I resigned. And honestly, the CEO thought I was having a breakdown. She was like, wait, do you know how much we pay you? I said, "Of course I do." And she goes, and I said, "It's not about the money." And she goes, "I don't understand." And I said, "Aha, that's why I'm leaving." So it's breaking the rules is about, getting back to what's important to you. It's about, in my case, impacting people. So if I see a better way to do something, a way that breaks the rules, but I know is going to help a lot of people, damn straight I'm going to break that rule.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I've had so much fun interviewing you. Where can people find you?
Oh, I make that so difficult. You need to get a rocket and go into space. No, I'm joking. Chasingtheinsights.com. It is the home of my podcast where I interview amazing guests, including one of my favorite. It's a woman named Kathy Walterhouse, just saying.
Yeah.
But it's also the home of my books, and it's a home of where you can connect with me on social, etc. You also see a link on there to my publishing company. If any of you want to talk about being authors, I highly encourage you just to book a free call with me, and we can chat about that. Honestly, it'd be an honor to help a lot of you to bring your stories to life as well.
Oh my gosh, this has been such a delight to have you on here. And you know, I think bottom line, what we talked about was in essence impacting people.
Yep.
And I think everyone that's out there that's listening or watching, you know, you are special. You have a unique story. And Vince obviously talked a lot about that, how everyone has their very, very unique story and it needs to get out in the world so that you can create a lot of ripples and help a lot of people. So I want to really thank my very special guest, Vince Warnock. And again, I'm going to go ahead and put in the show notes all his contact information, and think about publishing your own book. And he obviously will be a great help to you if you want to go that route. So thanks again, Vince.
Oh, Kathy, it has been an absolute privilege being on your show. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome.